Hey there YouTube, Austin here. Going over my AR-15 build again, just kind of going over the PTAC LPK from PSA. Kind of what I found over the past, I don't know, it's a couple of weeks now, of issues I found with it, good things, bad things, things I've changed. And one of the biggest things is, if you've watched my part 2 of the LPK review, you notice it had this take up about a 1/4 inch, and then take up, and it's got a really hard break on it. Did a little research on PSA and the reviews, and a lot of people were saying, oh, well, the disconnector and the hammer aren't quite in spec, so when you pull the trigger, you're actually, as the disconnector comes up, it's hitting the hammer. So either, I don't know if it's the disconnector itself, the hammer, people switched it out and say it's one and the other, so I'm not quite sure, but I figured, okay, slid a piece of paper in there between the disconnector and the trigger itself and the two faces, and lifted it up, and it gave it a little space in there. So I tried that, and it's actually worked really well, so now I'm getting a fairly smooth trigger break, not that really hard lockup. So what I'm going to do is actually take both of the hammer and trigger out and shave down the edge of the disconnector here and also the face right here of the hammer, so that way as you're pulling the trigger, those two surfaces have a little bit more room. You guys got to be really careful. I'm no gunsmith or anything, so do this at your own risk. I'm not telling you to do this. Sorry if it doesn't work for you. I mean, a hammer and a disconnector is what, a couple bucks if you mess it up. But after you're done, make sure safety wise everything works okay. Pull the trigger, comes back, resets without it. I mean, stuff like that. I'm an amateur, guys. I'm just home gunsmith, background of studying mechanical engineering, so I have a pretty good idea what I'm talking about, but I'm by no means an expert, so I don't take what I say all the time for 100%. But anyway, it's a good way to do it. I'll tear it apart, file them down, and see how it goes. Alright guys, I'll give you a quick overview of what I did now. Alright, so pretty much what was happening is here, got your trigger, hammer, as they were coming, and your disconnector, as they were coming about and getting ready to fire, trigger moves back, and this part here was hitting. So I took the disconnector. You see I kind of sanded that down right on the edge of it, because it was just needed about a 1,000th off. Or if you don't know what that is, it's 1,000th or 1/1000 of an inch. So if that, maybe you probably needed about 5/10 thou, just a little bit off that edge. And then I also took off this rear edge here and sanded that down. And I took about, I believe, 60 grit sandpaper, fine file, and then I finished it with this 400 grit. Good way to do it is just take and wet sand it. Using that gives you a pretty nice finish. So here, now when these two parts are coming together, they're just barely missing here. So, did that, took care of my problem, hopefully. I'll throw it together and see how it works. And then also, while I had it apart, took the trigger, and this PTAC lower, the trigger face here, had some imperfections from machining. And of course, for $30, you're not asking for a lot. I mean, you're lucky all parts are in the bag at that point. But I have to say, I'm really happy with that. The way this is turning out. Once it's polished up, but this thing should have about a 5.5, maybe a 6-pound trigger pull. That's what I'm shooting for. Heavy, but not so much that you're really having to bear down. So throw these in there.
Alright guys,
show you how it looks. Finished product, all back together. Quick safety check. Safe. Fire. And I gotta say, the trigger feel now is just phenomenal. With a $30 parts kit, you really can't get much better. I mean, like I said, we went and filed off all the contact points between the trigger and the hammer, and smoothed them down with this 400 grit sandpaper. Wet sanded it, and it works great. You don't have that spot anymore in there where it was hitting. Now it's just smooth as can be. And if you watched the part 2 of my LPK review, you remember you had that little bit of take up, probably about a 1/4 inch, and then it was a hard stop. And now it's just straight through, smooth as can be. And what I like to do, take a little bit of rem oil, just spray in there along the faces, keeps them pretty well lubed up. Because after a while, once that dries and no longer working in there, it does get a little bit harder on the pull. Probably takes it up 1/2 pound at least, if not more. So I just like to work that in there, and I mean that's got to be close to a 4 or 5 pound trigger right there, and you really can't beat that. I mean, you're thinking if you buy Geisel or Geisley or Gizzle, and I've heard it a million different ways, but you're looking at $200 for a trigger system, which, yeah, you can get down 2.5 pounds. Like I have a Savage 11111 that I use for deer hunting in 308, and that probably has about a 3 pound pull on it. It's stock trigger, but it's the Accu trigger, so you can adjust it. But this, I have to say, $30, well worth the money. Have any questions, go ahead and post them below, and I'll try to get back to you on those. Guys, and if you like it, go ahead and like the page and subscribe, and there'll be more videos and reviews to come as I'm doing this build and other guns and lights and such that I have. So, thanks so much.